Hi, welcome to episode 2 of 5 Minutes of Wokeness, where we take 5 minutes to talk about social justice issues and spread wokeness. So, I've generally gotten along quite well with the family of one of my closest friends, even being invited to come up for the day when the family vacation took place near where I was living. I was Facebook friends even with her sister and her mom, the same mom who, as I talked about in episode 0, just unfriended me. See, I'd made a Facebook post about my frustration that even after the Black Lives Matter movement was 3 years old, there were still people who insisted on saying that Black Lives Matter was unnecessarily divisive and that we should be saying all lives matter. A number of people commented on my post to agree with me about how vexing it is. Enter friend's mom. She told us how she was lamenting both the deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, as well as the officers who had just been killed in Dallas, and insisted that we should be saying all lives matter. Several of my friends, nicely, tried to explain to her why that statement was offensive. It seemed as though she'd understood the issue. Essentially, what we told her is the reason that all lives matter is an offensive statement is due to two main issues. One, that all lives matter, as a slogan, is diluting and distracting from the issue at hand, namely the violence that Black people are facing at law enforcement hands. Two, Black lives are a part of all lives, and therefore if someone who wants to declare all lives matter, they should be protesting the loss of Black life as well. So the reason that all lives matter dilutes and distracts from the issue is that it takes away from a very specific focus, namely the disproportionate amount of deaths at the hands of police officer Black people face, and broadens it out to a scope so wide as to be unserviceable and essentially dismissive of what the Black Lives Matter movement is trying to convey. Broadening the scope so much doesn't focus on what the Black Lives Matter movement is concerned about, namely the more than double likelihood of a Black person being killed in an encounter with a police officer than a white person. Doing it for inclusiveness is just poor motivation. If you want to paint one room of your house yellow and another room of your house blue, you're going to get really mad if you come back from the paint store with green paint because the person mixed them in the name of inclusiveness. The green may be a lovely color, and the sentiment of caring for all life is pretty, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to focus on a specific issue, which is the whole point of Black Lives Matter. Speaking of valuing all lives equally, all lives matter as a slogan would have very different implications if what it meant was not an attempt to drown out the voices of the people crying out to end the death of Black people at the hands of police officers, but as an umbrella term. If it was Latinx Lives Matter protesters, Native Lives Matter protesters, Middle Eastern Lives Matter protesters, etc., all gathering to say all lives matter, it wouldn't be drowning out the voices of Black Lives Matter, but amplifying the issues. Currently, those groups are not as active in social media and real-life protesting the same way that Black Lives Matter protesters are. But what if they were? What would happen if violence against Latinx and Native lives were considered too? If instead of each of the specific minority lives matter being treated as one spectrum filtered through the prism of white light of valuing all lives equally, instead of it being another catchphrase of people who are not interested in protesting the 633 lives taken by the police in 2016 alone, it could be a specific rallying cry. If it were followed with action and support for ending the deaths that people are facing at police hands, we as a country have killed more people via the police than every other first world country. We need to protest this. Write letters to the police chiefs in your city. Agitate for bad apples to stop spoiling the bunch, rather than letting problematic officers move from one department to another, like the officer who killed Tamar Rice. If Dallas can drop their excessive force complaints by over 90% by making sure that de-escalation is the name of the game, why can't we have that happen throughout the country? If you really want to tell me that I shouldn't be offended by the phrase all lives matter, then get out there and agitate for all lives to matter, equally. Incidentally, my friend's mom unfriended me because she came back to me after the initial All Lives Matter discussion and tried to tell me that I shouldn't find the phrase offensive, again, partially due to the fact that more white people were killed by police than Black people. She also said that Black-on-Black crime was more likely to be a cause of my death than that of a police officer encounter gone wrong. Her sentiment was where I drew the line. Now, while there are a great many issues with wanting to take something that minorities are facing and make it about the difficulties that white people are facing, taking it to Black-on-Black crime doesn't say, I'm trying to solve the police violence issue, but just a deflection. So on Thursday, we'll talk about why it is so problematic. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you then. Thanks.